Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
Hey guys, this is your co-host Ashley, Gorilla Girl filmmaker, lunar goddess, and cinephile.
And I'm your co-host John Thomas, ghost hunter, super smartass, and film lover extraordinaire.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and metapals? In today's episode, we'll be discussing energy work. What exactly is an energy worker? How does one become an energy worker? Helping us decipher and enlighten this amazing world are two special guests. Who might you ask? Tune in and find out.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more.
Nailed it. I'm just joking. All right.
Nailed it. Bring us back, John.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Like Ashley said, we've got two guests today. Returning guest, Callea again. Hello, Callie. Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me back.
And we have Patricia. Hello, Patricia. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Doing well, and no problem. We always love having people come on, so yeah.
Yeah, we love having people join us and talk about things that I can barely wrap my head around. Even though I'm supposed to stop thinking and feeling more. I'm remembering I need to work on that. Callie gave me homework and I'm working on it.
Stop thinking, start feeling.
I know. So, for our new listeners, because, we do have listeners that listen to these episodes out of order, why don't you both tell us a little bit about yourselves? So, let's start with Callie, and then we'll go to Patricia.
Well, my name's Sherrill. Several years ago, I was the resident paranormal investigator at the Stanley Hotel. So I'm kind of into the whole ghosts and spirits thing. And through that, I ended up kind of in the metaphysical world, I guess. But I'm not officially anything. I don't know how to explain that. You were saying in the intro, how does one become an energy worker? And I don't really feel like I ever became an energy worker. I just have always felt energy, and I've always been excited to share it with people. So it's not something I became or chose. And I don't know, energy worker to me just sounds so fancy.
Well, thank you and welcome back. And hello, Patricia. Pretty Lotus Blossom, as I remember.
Yes, that's my star name. My name is Patricia Boston. I do go by Pretty Lotus Blossom. That's what my grandfather called me when I was a little girl. I have to agree with Callie. Energy work or being an energy healer or a healer or talking to angels and having visions and all of that. Like, my psychic gifts have always been something that I have had. I will say that when I was a little girl, it was like something that was pretty normal for me. And then it's something I lost. When I came back to it, just on my spiritual journey, it was something I realized I always had and I've always been. So I think it's more of a case of me being open to my natural gifts instead of trying to shove them down and fit in the box that society would put me in. But I have been an energy healer where I do energy healing on people other than myself for 5 years now. And one of the things that I've always done, even as a child, was going into the spirit world with Archangel Michael to kind of rescue souls from their own darkness. So it's something I've always been and always done. And I have if I were to go into all of the things that I've done just in a world that's really normal for me, it would probably take us an hour to go over all of it.
Well, thank you for all of that. I have so many questions off of just what you just said. So with that said, I'm just going to get started. Let's just dive in. So you mentioned that you rescue souls that are lost. Are these souls that are presently living, like people coming to you for help? Or is this independent work that you do for people that have already passed on? Or is it a mixture of both?
Kind of a mixture of both. And it's I don't know, it's something I've just kind of naturally have done, like because of my gift of clairvoyance is so pronounced, which is clear seeing, like having psychic visions. I have a clear view into the light realm, or the lower realms. Basically, based on my belief, when somebody passes, you're going to create whatever beliefs are hanging around. So if you believe that you're going to have a negative experience when you die, that's what you're going to experience. If you believe, you still have veils to get through when you've left your physical body. And I have helped souls that I knew, right? Like I had a friend who died of a drug overdose, and when I went into his energy to see, like to connect with him, I saw that he was in a really dark place. And so I helped him overcome his sadness and accept what had happened. And it's kind of like going into the darkness to help them see that they're creating the situation and that they have the power of light within them to heal it and to go into the light. And that can be something that you do for souls that aren't living and souls that are living, because we all have the power within ourselves to heal ourselves with love, if that makes sense. And Archangel Michael is the one who taught me how to do all of that.
I had never even considered that. I mean, we discussed this before with like mental manifestation and like you are what you think. I believe that's something that Kelly taught us in a workshop. You are what you believe. And so why wouldn't that apply to the afterlife? Why wouldn't that apply to what happens next? What you believe is going to happen is what you manifest to being hung up in that spot. Wow, there's so many layers there. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like I'm constantly getting my mind blown in this podcast, and I just don't even know sometimes how to, I guess, verbalize what it is. My brain is just all these pieces that connect from previous conversations and topics that we've had. And it's just like, aha, that makes more sense. Wouldn't make sense to me unless I had had that previous conversation. And now it's like, that actually makes sense to me. So, wow. One thing I did notice is that both you and Callie said the same thing, that, it's not something that you chose to do. Like, I'm going to learn to play the violin. It's a gift that you both already had. And I imagine your gifts are different. And so I think for listeners who don't understand what energy work is, I think it takes even a step back of what we mean when we're talking about gifts. So for you, Callie, like how would you interpret what your gifts are? I think you said you feel energies, but what else does that mean to you?
It is so hard to put that in a box. I struggle with that because I'm kind of, I don't know how to put it, like anti-label. Mm-hmm. I feel like when you label something, you sort of limit it. And so trying to explain what my gifts are is kind of hard for me to do because I feel them more than, I think them, Ashley.
Oh, darn.
Right.
My lifelong struggle.
But for me, my biggest gift is that I feel energy. Somebody once told me that I was like a bridge between the world, like the world where we all have our feet on the ground, and then the world where you're kind of in different planes or dimensions. And that I'm kind of a bridge between that because I'm just as comfortable in the normal world where I put on my cowgirl boots and go out and ride my horse and do all that kind of stuff as I am when I cross the bridge and I'm kind of over in this realm where we start having conversations about quantum physics and the things that are, hard to wrap your brain around. So I guess my biggest gift would just be being that bridge for people who think that it's something only special people get to do, that really we all have that opportunity if you can just connect and realize that we do all feel energy.
I think that's the hardest thing, at least in my opinion, and I don't know, as both of you who tend to be more in that world in terms of like working with people on that, I think a lot of people get hung up just on this concept of energy. Like, what is energy? Because I don't think that people realize, at least for me, the same energy that we are talking about is the same energy that like science talks about, something that we all carry that we can't see, like with our naked eye. But it's there and everybody has it, and that it's not just people that have it.
Well, and you can see energy because everything is energy. So
Affair.
I see you and your energy. You see me and I'm energy. It's just that sometimes energy vibrates at a higher frequency or a faster frequency where you can't see it. It's not in the human range of vision. That's where you have to start to feel it. But we can all see energy.
She always gets me. She's just like, aha, no. So when Patricia was talking about going into these spaces to find the souls that are stuck, it kind of was making me think about what we had discussed previously with astral projection. And I wonder if that kind of energy work where you're going into other realms that aren't our traditional physical realm, if that is a form of astral projection.
I would say yes, absolutely.
We should have had her last episode.
All right.
When it comes to energy work, I feel like that's such a broad term, right? Like there's so many different ways to work with energy. And I think to your point, one has to first accept that you can feel energy in order to be able to work with it. And maybe both of you can assist me with this because I've heard about it, haven't done the research, but what exactly is like a Reiki master? What is Reiki energy work? Because that seems to be very common right now.
I'm happy to answer this question. However, I take a different view, and I don't want to like insult people who do Reiki because it is a powerful form of healing. I would say that a few years ago when Reiki was first introduced, and it was powerful and it was new and it was higher energy work than what had ever been available on the planet, just based on where the planet was vibrating at that time. Because the planet is ascending and the energy that is coming to the planet now is much higher, there are higher forms of energy healing that are available. However, Reiki is basically channeling source energy into somebody, like their wound, their like emotional body, like you're channeling the energy. You're being the conduit and the channel to channel the energy into them to affect the healing that you're trying, if they are fatigued, if they're like, it depends on what the goal is here, right? Like I've had energy healing, like Reiki healing on an ankle that was sprained and it just wasn't healing, and somebody did Reiki healing on me, and after a couple of sessions it was like it didn't hurt anymore. So but the number one thing to remember about energy healing is the person who's the channel for energy healing isn't the one doing the healing. They're just like, I'm just channeling it. The person who is receiving is the one doing the healing. Them and source, like divine light. That's where the healing is happening. I'm not taking credit for that healing. But a Reiki master is somebody who has gone through a certain level of training with Reiki. Like you go to school and you get your high school diploma, and then you get your bachelor's degree, and then you can get your master's degree. It's the same thing with Reiki. It's just a certain level of expertise and a certain number of healings that they've done.
Okay. So when I think of allowing yourself to be a conduit, and I think any kind of energy work, right, that we're doing with another human being or I guess creature or anything, let's just take the human out of it. When we are allowing ourselves to be a conduit and help something else heal through energy, I'm a very mistrusting individual, so I'm going to preface that before I finish my sentence. I worry about those that go into energy work without having proper, I say proper loosely because I know that's a judgment value, but proper tools to protect themselves from accidental attachments, creating connections to whoever it is that you're helping heal or you're reading for, or just depending what kind of work that is being done. So part of what I worry about with the new trendy, new age energy work that's occurring, because energy work's been around for a really long time. Like, it's ancient. This is not something new, but it's trendy. So now it's like you can get an online diploma on how to do all these different things, and you too can be a shaman for a low price. And it's just like I worry about individuals allowing themselves to be a conduit and forming accidental attachments or not knowing how to protect themselves when doing said energy work. That was a lot.
Well, and it can go both ways. If you have somebody who is doing the energy work, they can also send negative energy and sort of infect the person that they are pretending to heal, because they are not coming from a place of, as Patricia called it, source. They're not channeling source. They're using their own ego to try to heal. And when you do that, you're transferring energy, because there is no other way. Energy always transfers between people. And if you're not accessing it from source, if it's not coming from a good place, then not only can you as an energy worker absorb something and have a negative attachment or experience, but you can also infect someone else with that. I don't know if infect is the right word, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a conversation with my friend at breakfast this morning about my same concern with this, because I had a friend who, she didn't know what she was doing, and she told me that she was trying to open her mom's third eye, and as a result her mother was having these really bad headaches, and I came down really hard on her, and I was like, you can't do that. You can't toy with other people. You can't meddle with them. You have to get their permission before you do these things. That's like step one as an energy worker. And I'm not just talking about the person who you're doing energy healing on's permission. I'm talking about like God's permission, like source permission. Like, I could be like having the best of intentions and being like, yes, I really want to help you with this healing, but let me ask the angels if that's cool. And they're like, no, you can't interfere. And I'm like, sorry, I can't interfere. And I like tried to really express to her the importance of not messing around in a realm that she doesn't know, when she doesn't know what she's doing. If you want to try to open your own third eye and play around with different things, like, that's you, but don't go trying to like meddle with other people when you don't know what you're doing. Like, that's completely, especially when like they're not like necessarily aware of it, right? So that is unfortunately something that happens, but at the same time, like, on a soul level, nobody's a victim, is what I'm trying to say. And it's, I think, as a group, and by group I mean as a group, humanity as a group, it's something that we're learning together. If I'm like wanting to try out a new energy healing technique, because I come up with energy healing techniques all the time, I ask my friends like, hey, I want to try this out. Who wants to essentially be who wants to try it? And, I will talk with them about it and give it a run and see what happens. But that's not something I would do on just anybody. I wouldn't just go do energy healing work on somebody without getting their permission or talking to them about it. And I think that with humans becoming aware of like the non-physical, unseen world around them, we're having to filter through the ego, and that's a lot. Like, filtering through the ego is a lot, and that's what we're in the process of doing now as a planet, going through ascension, is releasing the ego and stepping into heart. And for all we know, that somebody that's going to go and have this situation where they're going to have an experience with somebody where they are being taken advantage of, quote unquote, maybe that's what they need on a soul level to grow. Maybe that experience is going to be the catalyst for them to awaken in some way, or, for the healer to awaken. Like, there are a lot of things that you have to let go of the control and allow it to happen. But I do feel like the more information that you can have, like, for example, hosting a podcast and talking about energy work, is helpful for everybody.
Yeah, I think consent is really important, kind of what you were touching on with your friend who is trying to force their mom's third eye open without their mom's awareness. I think energy force, when we're talking about, for lack of a better word, and please forgive me if it's offensive, but it's like a form of energy assault. When you're forcing someone's energy manipulation without their consent or awareness, whether it's a spiritual energetic attack or forcing their gifts open when they do not want them to be open, that I think is a very big cardinal rule, no. But I also think when someone's doing it without awareness on an individual, it's not as effective as consent, because when we are giving consent, we are open to it. We're leaning into it. We are opening our energy to resonate with it and to vibrate along with what's being given to us. We're a bit more of a tuning fork. Whereas when someone is forcing it upon us without our knowledge, it can still be effective, but I don't think it's as strong. So for forced connections, when people force their energetic strings onto you, I think those cords are easier to cut than one that you willingly allow to be bound to you and threaded to your energy. That doesn't mean it should be done. And to your point, I think there's a lesson in everything. So when those things happen, yes, there's absolutely a lesson. The unfortunate thing about that is that it doesn't require your belief in it for it to be effective. So I think there's a lot of people that can go through life with energetic attacks, if you will, that don't know that's what's being done to them. They are feeling the effects of it, whether it be the migraines or the splitting headaches or the chest pains or the prickling, needles on their body, and they don't realize that their energy is in fact being attacked or manipulated. And they go to the doctors like, here's some medicine for anxiety attacks, when it's not really like what maybe it's an anxiety attack, but not at the source of what people are assuming it is. Or here's these pills for migraines, when in reality, they may be experiencing something that is in fact not necessarily on a chemical level. I think awareness is important so that maybe people stop looking to pills to fix maybe something that isn't on a biological level.
I think that a lot of disease has its root cause in emotional issues, and that can be translated in the energetic realm in a variety of ways. I'm a person who works with chakras. If somebody's experiencing, for example, like heart disease, I would look at their heart chakra, or where they're having imbalances in their body, or are you holding on to trauma in your heart that you never healed, or grief that you never healed, or there are a lot of ways that emotional pain or trauma or grief or just unresolved emotional what have you can manifest in your life as a physical illness. Like anxiety causes a lot of digestive issues. Digestion is the one that I know the most about because that's what I'm personally healing in my own life. But I agree with you, Ashley. Whenever I have something manifest as disease in my life, I'm looking for what's the root cause? What do I need to heal within myself to bring myself back into alignment to essentially heal this manifestation in the physical sense?
Yeah, I think the energetic and the physical bodies get treated as two separate things. And it's all like Callie said at the beginning. Your physical body is your energy body. It's a form of your energy body. So we treat it so separately in the world, not realizing that they directly impact each other. So how you treat one is going to impact the other, and because they are one. And so those energetic imbalances oftentimes do represent themselves as physical disease. John, you've been really quiet.
I don't know. I think you have a better understanding of all of this than I do. I can't wrap my head around any of it, to be honest with you.
You have to feel it, John. That's what I've been having to learn.
I know.
Thank you, Ashley.
See, I hear what you hear now, Kelly.
Well, it's true though. I think that it's easier to show people that they feel energy when they stop trying to wrap their head around it. Just like, John, when you go ghost hunting and you're looking for spirits, when you get into the moment and you're waiting for what might be coming around the corner or what's lurking in the dark, and you're being quiet and all of your senses are open, right? You're not thinking, you're
Right.
feeling. And that's when energy is the most powerful for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get out of your head.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I always found it interesting that certain parts of our bodies, depending on the individual, carry our energetic blockages, strain. So, like, our trauma gets packed into certain areas. And I always kind of was curious, like, how that's determined. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I carry my trauma in my low back and my hips get out of alignment. And so I know when I start to pull really hard out of alignment, like, okay, what am I absorbing and not releasing? But I was kind of wondered, some people carry it in their shoulders or their neck. And so it's just like, what determines that?
In my opinion, it's the chakras that's related to whatever trauma you experience. So, was your trauma in your sacral area? That's where you're going to be experiencing it, down in your hips and in the lower area. Was your trauma based on something you couldn't say? Then you're going to be experiencing it up in your throat, because it's really related to whatever chakra is related to that trauma, in my opinion.
So that's a good indicator just for me, I guess, depending where I'm locked up. It's like, okay, it helps me identify maybe what maybe I may be holding on to.
Absolutely, you can go the other direction with it.
I agree with that.
Well, I think sometimes we get so automatic in carrying, especially as we get older, right? In carrying how things affect us, that it becomes a force of habit. Like, I absorb it and hold on to it, not realizing I'm not working through whatever it is that's presenting to me. And I'm just like loading it on. Like, all right, go onto my low back. There you go. Find a spot, make room, get comfy. I think it helps me kind of, like you said, go backwards, go reverse. Like, okay, this is presenting itself. What am I not addressing? What am I just kind of automatically putting onto myself and holding on to? Or I'll just call Callie and Patricia.
Yeah, we all do that. And then the more you do that, that's when disease starts to manifest, right? If you tend to hold your stress in your heart, and over time, yeah, you're going to start having heart problems because you're not ever releasing that energy. You're storing it all up there. Or if you tend to hold your stress in your stomach, you're going to start manifesting digestive issues. When you're a kid, you let all that stuff go and you don't hold on to it. But as more and more happens to you, and you continue to grow and you don't learn how to process your emotions and you're not taught how to release it, it just accumulates. And one of the things I focus on as an energy healer is teaching people how to figure out and find a practice of release, essentially, that works for them, like assessing where they are, like which chakra is affected, and then helping them discover the tools, like meditating, going outside, singing, dancing, or journaling, whatever it is that works to help them release and let go and not hold on to their things, and having that devotional practice in their life, and finding a way, like if it's for me, whenever I'm going into my root chakra or my sacral chakra, I call upon the angels to help clear the energy and balance my chakras, and visualize, because I'm a visual person, red light coming into my root chakra, and then I move through each chakra and I work with the corresponding color and visuals that come up for me. That's what I do. And then, for example, Callie might be more of a feeling person because she has said several times that she's a feeling person. So visualization might not be the best method for her. She might want to feel her way into her root chakra, and I'm not the feeling person, so I wouldn't know. I would have to sit and help her work through that, but sounds like she's already got it all together and she's got her methods that work for her. I think really it all comes down to going back to your inner child, reparenting yourself. A lot of times, just what I've seen working with different people is we have trauma that happened to us when we were really young and we just never processed it and let it go. And then that's the trauma that we repeat throughout our lives. Learning to undo that, learning to let it go so that you're not continuing to manifest it is a process. And it requires a lot of grace and compassion and love and patience. It's kind of like retraining your neural pathways, only on an energetic level. But they're all connected, right? They're all connected.
All of the many energetic pathways.
Yes.
3 words keep popping up, and they came up last episode as well. Let it go. I mean,
I think I even sang as a Disney character.
She sang it.
you did. Yes.
She sang Let It Go.
Which is not a good thing, by the way.
The irony is that, like, Callie, you're a feeler, and you're always telling me to stop thinking and feeling. And ironically, that is like where my energetic gifts lie, is that I feel. I am completely a feeler. I think a lifetime of feeling and not knowing how to control how much, energy comes in and how much I absorb and how much I became afraid of feeling. And so it's like, it's all or nothing. It's like, shut it all down so then I don't have to, be bombarded by it. And I remember there was this one episode of Charmed. I don't know if you guys ever watched Charmed, but there was an episode of Charmed where suddenly one of the sisters could hear everything, like everybody's internal thoughts all at once. And she ended up just completely breaking down. She ended up in an abandoned house, huddled in a corner, just sobbing because the voices wouldn't stop. And I feel like that's what the point I reached at some point in life, where it's like I'm feeling too much of everybody's emotions. I'm feeling too much of everybody's extremes, because that's all I feel. I don't feel when someone's stable. I feel the extremes of when they're angry, sad, happy, like all of those things. And so for me, it was just like, it's too much. I can't take it. I don't want it. And shutting it down. And it became, I feel like, almost like a natural instinct to shut down feeling in general. And then my brain's always just wanting to default. I have to think about it, because if I'm thinking about it, I'm not feeling it. So trying to find that balance. And I think a lot of what this season is for me is the universe telling me, hey, stop closing off. Find your balance. You can find a balance. It exists.
kind of ironically enough, you're the one that came up with most of these episodes for this topic. So, boom.
Guess I didn't know what I needed.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can learn to let in what you want to let in and block out what you want to block out. It's muscle memory, just like going to the gym, really. But in order to do that, you can't take the easy way out by just shutting the door. You have to start letting it in, and you have to practice with it. Because if you don't practice, you don't get better at it. And in order to practice, you have to do it. So I think it's really important to remember that sometimes it's going to be a little scary. But where I practice? This is going to sound really crazy to you. When I'm trying to practice keeping control of my empathic side, I practice by watching TV, because even there are some commercials that literally get my empathic side and just grab my heart and twist it into a million pieces. And so I practice by watching TV. I will watch something that I know is going to actually bother me because I'm going to feel for the character, or I'm going to feel for what's happening. And I work on breathing and shutting it down, because with the TV, it's a safe space. It's not a real person, right? It's not a real situation. But my body doesn't know that. And so it helps me to practice. And so I do a lot of practicing by using the TV and watching things that maybe make me uncomfortable. Now I'm to the point where, I used to not be able to go out into crowds of people, because if I was in a crowd of people, I didn't know why I was uncomfortable. But it was because I was feeling all of this energy all around me, and I didn't know what it was or where it was coming from. But now that I know what it is, and now that I've practiced, when I go out into a crowd of people, I can actually, if I start to feel really intense energy, whether it's happiness or sadness or anything else, I can look around in the crowd and I can spot the person. And it's weird, because they will then spot me. We make eye contact, because they know that I felt it. They're trying to give me their stuff. And I will then immediately put up a shield and I give it back to them. I don't care if it's happiness or if it's sadness or if it's anger. It doesn't matter what it is. It's not mine to have. And so the second I know who it's coming from, I turn it around on them and I give it back to them. Because unless I've actually agreed to work with them and help them to transmute that into a better place, if we're just out in a crowd, that's not mine to take on. And so I practice that a lot too, going down into crowds and where am I feeling this anger from? Oh, I see that dude right there. And pretty soon he looks me in the eye and it's like, yeah, I'm giving this back to you. So it takes practice. So don't be afraid of it.
I call that energy claustrophobia. Or people claustrophobia. I'm the same way with crowds. I do not like crowds because I get claustrophobic, and it's not from the just lots of people bodies. It's the so much energy in one space, and I'm like, nope, I'm being smothered. I can't take it, and so I've been working on that. I try to process that a little better, but I think what it sounds like is I need to practice with the movie Coco. Because that one makes me cry all the time. So I'm going to put on Coco and I'm going to get to work.
There you go. As long as it's not going to ruin Coco for you.
No.
Because I don't like to practice with my favorite movies because I don't want to take away that feeling from my favorite movie. Mine and John's, both our favorite movie is Serendipity. I would never practice with Serendipity.
No, can't.
So then maybe I
Can't
shouldn't
ruin that
practice
movie
with
at all.
Coco. I'll practice with Up.
Okay. Anyway, that's just my personal advice. Take it or don't.
No, I like it. That's actually a really good call because to your point, like shows and movies and stuff, they really do know how to tap into that. And it's just like, I try to be cautious about what I watch because of that. But it's like, you know what? Although with kids, I end up watching all these movies and I'm like, oh, that got the feels. And they're like, Mama's crying again. And I'm like, leave me alone.
This is something that somebody gave to me because it's something, it's something I've struggled with an empath as well. And that's to be a lighthouse, not a sponge. Because if you just walk around absorbing everybody else's energy, you're screwed. No nice way to put it. And it's not something you can't control their energy, but learning to generate your own feelings and light from within and seeing yourself as a lighthouse and a source of light and essentially a star, you're generating your own feelings of happiness or whatever it is you want to feel in that moment because you have the control to create that with your thoughts, with your feelings, and be a lighthouse. Don't be a sponge. It took me quite a bit of time to really understand what that meant. So maybe it's something you need to chew on for a little while, but I do my best. If I'm out in the world and I'm getting overwhelmed, I have to remind myself that these aren't my feelings. They're not my emotions. This is not what I want to create right now. I want to feel happy. I want to feel good. That's my responsibility to create that and to be a lighthouse and not be a sponge and absorb everybody else's stuff that they've got going on.
I like that. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're doing energetic manipulation when they are, because we all do it naturally. I think about
when they're dumping on you.
Yeah, like anger, for example. When someone's feeling really angry and they unload and just go off on somebody else, they feel better. Even if they felt oh, that wasn't nice, they actually feel a whole lot better, right? But that energy was transferred onto the other person, and the other person feels wrecked and feels drained. And depending how empathic they are, it can be really destructive because some people will absorb that way more than another individual. They don't realize that that was actually an energetic transference, a manipulation of a specific type of energy, resonating and vibrating. We do, as individuals, need to get those negative energies out. If we are holding on to anger or holding on to sadness, that does need to be let go, but not onto another individual. Energy transference does not need to occur in that way. I think a lot of people, they get hung up on, like Callie says, the woo-woo of grounding out, the term grounding out, but it's the earth can take it. The earth can take our transference of those energies because to the earth, it's not something that isn't neutral. Our anger and sadness to ground is not going to make the earth necessarily like angry and sad. It's energy, right? It's just energy to the earth, at least in my opinion. And so by learning to get those negative, I would say negative to us because it does cause disease and certain things within our bodies if we hold on to that too much. But by releasing anger and sadness and even extreme happiness, that can be a little too much to our energy too. Releasing that out into the earth through our feet or some other grounding technique, even going out into the woods and screaming, getting that energy out really needs to be, I guess, accepted more or at least promoted more as a tool for self-care in the world. People pick out, I think they were saying that like self-help books are like the number one book spot in the world. People know they need help. They know there's something wrong within themselves because of how we misalign and we go away from that inner child as we get older and walk through life. But we don't know how to help ourselves. And I think it sometimes is as simple as learning to let it go. But how to let it go. Learning how to let it go is really important. And I think that's going to vary depending on the individual, because John may not want to go in the woods and scream curse words and obscenities. Like, that's my favorite thing to do. But
I always want to scream curse words and obscenities. Come on now.
But there's so many other ways. Hit a punching bag, not a person. It's just like so many ways to realign ourselves back to this space of like stasis when we waver too far away from it.
I agree.
And now for my risque question. Because we've done topics on witchcraft. I'm not correlating this to witchcraft, by the way. But we have done topics on witchcraft. And we have done topics on rituals and spells over time. And one of the things that I have picked up a lot on, because I have a dirty brain, is that sex magic seems to be like one of the strongest like forms of the different types of magics out there because of sexual energy. And when I did a lot of like research into like a lot of the yogic philosophies, you know, we've heard of the Kama Sutra, we've heard of Tantra, like that is very much sexual energy based. And so my question is, what is sex energy? What is that, just a different vibration, that sexual sensual energy? Is that sourced from a different, like, is that like our sacral chakra, root chakra? What is sexual energy?
Well, for me, it depends on how you're connecting with the person that you're actually having sex with. You can have sex that's very sacral, and you can have sex that is very much in your crown chakra. It just depends on the person that you're connecting with. There's a whole wide range, really, of what sexual energy is. It's just a connection with another person. Just like with any other connection with another person, you have to be vibrating on the same level. And so if you're having sort of sacral sex, you know, that base sex where it's just your typical human need that you have, it's important that you're having that with another human being that wants to have that particular sex experience at this time. And you can go back and forth with the same partner. It doesn't have to be limited to one chakra at a time, if that makes sense. That's my opinion on it.
Sexual energy is our divine life force. I don't view sexual energy as something that requires another person. Who I am. It's my connection to source and my divinity, and it's one of the most powerful forces in the universe. I'm a sexual goddess and a tantric priestess. My sexuality and my ability to receive pleasure and bliss and orgasmic energy has nothing to do with my ability to connect with another person. That's all something I can experience on my own. Sexual energy is essentially your divine life force, but we're not taught that. We live in a very puritanical culture that teaches that sex is a sin and that it should be shamed. And if you think about it, sexual energy is our creative energy. Like, sexual energy is literally where we all come from. That's my answer, and that's my experience. That's why sex magic is so powerful.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because at least for me, I feel like I feel the difference. I feel the difference when I am resonating on a different level that I would identify with my sensuality or my sexuality. I feel that vibrational difference within myself. And I also feel like that's the same energy I tap into when I create, when I write, when I even like do it, like movement, like aerial arts or even yoga. I feel like when I practice yoga, I tap into that specific energy within myself. So for me, I guess I was always curious. As weird as it sounds, I feel like I can also identify when other people are feeling that specific space within themselves. Like when they're resonating on that level, that's something I can identify as well, not just the anger and the sadness and like I can feel when they're tapping that specific energy type. And so I guess for me, I've always been curious about what is that? And maybe it doesn't matter what that is. I don't need to give it a label. But it's always been to me like, where does that exist? Because I know where the anger and the sadness and the grief and all of the plethora of emotions, I know where those exist. But with that specific energy vibration, it's always been just a mystery to me because it's so strong to me. I feel it so strongly within myself and others. It's like, what is that? Where's that coming from? I am weird. But it also, I feel like that's the same energy I feel from the moon. Like my attachment to like the moon. I have this, everybody, teases me. I joke about it, like lunar goddess. Like that same energy that I feel from the moon is the same energy that I feel when I feel that specific like energy from others in that specific way, that creative energy. I sound like a wackadoodle.
We all do.
I think you sound perfectly normal. And I think if you were to sit down and do some automatic writing and ask what is sexual energy, that you would reveal it to yourself. Have you ever done any research into Kundalini awakening or Kundalini energy? Kundalini?
I know that there's like yoga classes they offered geared towards that. I haven't taken any. I haven't really explored that specific part of energy work or yoga, I guess. I imagine that's more than yoga, but that's the only avenue I've heard of it.
Have you ever done like a chakra meditation where you're starting at your base chakra and moving all the way up to your crown chakra?
Not a meditation. I've done guided like breathing through that, but that's usually done right before like an actual like physical vinyasa class. So I don't feel that's really allowing the space to sit in that long enough to get much from it other than the initial like breathing alignment. But I should.
Well, that's moving your, like, because your sexual energy in the tantric world coils at the base of your spine, and it's representative of a serpent. And a lot of people, it doesn't move beyond their third chakra. But when you move the energy all the way up and out, then you're expanding your sexual energy and breathing into it and allowing it to flow the way that it naturally should flow throughout your entire being.
But then I feel like I want to like eat like a rare steak and like go have sex with everybody. I'm just kidding. I do feel like a little bit more primal when I tap into that energy though. Like I think I'm a werewolf, but
But I think it's one of those things where Holly said earlier that, when you first start working with that energy, you're going to be overwhelmed, but the more that you work with it, the more you're going to learn, it's going to reveal itself to you. You're going to it will reveal itself to you. And at first your reaction might be, I need to eat a rare steak and go have sex with everybody. But then that's like a very great, like root chakra response there, right? Like root, like sacral chakra response. As you're moving the energy up your spine and through your higher chakras, you're going to have different experiences with your sexual energy within yourself. And then you'll also have different experiences with, if you choose to have partners, your partners, because it's going to be kind of like a mirror effect, like whatever's within you is what you're going to manifest out in the world. So if you're wanting to have those lower vibrational experiences, that's what you're going to manifest. But if you want to move the energy up to a higher space and have sacred sex and you view sex as sacred, then which it is, it's a sacred exchange of energies, then those are the experiences you'll more or less wait for, because you're not wanting to engage in sexual activity just for the pure carnal pleasure of it. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that the beliefs you have and the relationship you have with your sexual energy within yourself, the universe is going to mirror to you whatever you've got going on within, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's defining what experiences you want and then doing the work within yourself to vibrate those out, and also being patient and waiting for those experiences to come to you versus taking like the base level ones that don't resonate with what it is you've defined that you want.
Yes.
It's a mental manifestation. Oh, man.
Yes, it's like everywhere. It's in everything. Like, we're constantly creating our realities.
To your point, though, it's like sex is a very taboo topic. But I think that, especially when it comes to energy work, sex is where a lot of people hold their trauma.
Yes.
Because of things that have happened to people. Like, that's a very big trauma source. And it can perpetuate out, like, without realizing it, we can continue to perpetuate that cycle because we hold on to that trauma. And so I think it's a topic that's important to discuss, even if it is a little uncomfortable.
I think it's extremely important to discuss uncomfortable topics, because that's how we get comfortable with them, by bringing them out into the light and examining them and saying there is nothing wrong with our human experience.
And there's nothing wrong with our sexual human experience.
Exactly.
There was a yoga class certification thing I took last summer, and the first thing that she had said resonated so hard with me that I was just like, I'm on the right path. And it was, we are all divine beings living a human experience.
Yes.
And that just resonated so hard with me, because it's like we forget we are so much more than these basic, like, skin bags of humanity. we are more than the flesh that we see. And I think a lot of us forget that. But once we realize we are so much more than that, I think that's when we give ourselves grace. That's when we give ourselves patience and love and treat ourselves the way that we should be treating ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves.
You know, and it's also important, once we do realize that we are more than just a human, that we are divine and we are more than that. But it's important because I think a lot of times once people realize that, all they want to be is that divine piece. They no longer want to have the human experience. And so they start pushing their human experiences away. And so I think it's also important to remember that we are human. We are the bags of skin. We are the human experiences that we're having. And those are okay too.
Yeah, we have to accept and embrace and love the yin and the yang within us. Because I think even when you were talking about it, Patricia, the Kundalini, isn't it? The serpent at the spine is our Kundalini energy, but we also, with that, it's attached to like our feminine and masculine side, the sun and the moon, right? Solar and lunar side. So it's like learning to just accept all of the different dualities within us.
I would say all aspects of ourselves, because there is only union, and the ego is what wants to create separation. So transcending that ego and being in the heart is where that grace and love and compassion manifests, if that makes sense. Because the ego is what creates the veil and what creates separation, and being in the heart, like being in the ego, being in the mind, that's what's creating the separation. And being in heart and being in union and seeing yourself in everyone and seeing everyone within you, that's unity heart consciousness. That's eternity. That's ascension.
We're definitely having this experience for a reason. So echoing kind of what you said earlier and things Callea has mentioned before, it's needed. It's needed, the separation and the division of ourselves, and then the veils are needed because we're learning something through this. What that lesson is we're supposed to learn, it may not be just one lesson. It may be an individualistic lesson, or maybe we're all little bitty fingers extending from the same thing, learning these lessons and bringing it all back together. But it's needed. Like it's needed. So I know that was kind of the weirdest visual I gave myself. All these little bitty spider fingers. I don't like spiders.
I see it as like rays of light coming out of the sun, you know, like it's all the same source.
Yes, I like yours much better. Let's go with the sun. Much better visual than the spider legs. See, you can see my mind automatically goes dark. And then we have like, look at the rays of light of the sun. We're the lighthouse. And I'm like, I really need to get on that level because spider legs are not a visual I want to have automatically.
That's something I've had to learn to do. I've had to learn to, you know, see the blessing in everything and be grateful for my experiences and don't look back at my trauma and hate it. Don't look at it as a blessing and a gift to create the catalyst that I needed on my journey to give me the gift of my own divinity. It's taken me a long time to see my trauma and quote unquote the darkness as a gift and as a blessing. That's not something that when it was first presented to me that I was just like, oh yeah, no, I can totally do that. It took me compassion and grace and patience with myself to get there with that, you know?
Yeah, I see the spectrum of light, whether it be the sun rays or the darkest of nights, equally necessary and equally powerful. But I also see it took me a while to get here. But I guess for anybody who may be listening to this, because we have so many different types of individuals in the world, not everybody is going to talk to angels. Not everybody is going to resonate with the sunlight. And that's not bad. We all resonate with different things. And so for me, I have always resonated more with like the darkest of nights. And that doesn't correlate with like I'm summoning demons and bloodletting and doing things like that. But I resonate with the moon and the dark nights more than I would the bright sunlight and the angels. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that like, and that's for anybody. It took a long time for me to accept that and say, that's okay. That's not bad. Like what I resonate with and what I vibrate with, that smoky vibration, the vibrations that do sometimes make people uncomfortable, that I equate with like dark nights, because in the darkest night you see the brightest stars, right? Like that is just a different way of resonating with energies, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think similar to sex, right? It is such a taboo if you don't resonate with bright sunlight and angels singing. And that's not mocking anything you've said. I think that I think it's beautiful to hear people that resonate so strongly with like the light and angels and things that I just don't connect to. I think that's absolutely beautiful. But I think it's also absolutely fine to connect with things that are considered opposite, whether it be sensuality, sexuality, although maybe it's the same thing because you yourself said you connect with like the sensual sexual energy as well, but maybe for you it exists in a different place within yourself that connects with the light. For me, I feel like I connect more with like this darker vibration. And for the longest time we get taught, well, that's evil and that's awful and you must worship the devil, and I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense. But last I checked, Satan is not my homie. But, you know, what do I know? But it is a different aspect. And the only way I can describe it is I feel like I resonate more with like smoky vibrations. The best way I define it is I compare it to breaths. So I feel like with light vibrations, it's an inhale. It's a... And with the darker vibrations, or what I consider like the smoky energies, it's more of an exhale. It's that release. And they're both needed. They're both absolutely necessary to this beautiful cycle of breathing, right? But it's just, I resonate more with the exhale. So, random tangent. Now you know a little bit more about me. Hashtag Satan is not my homie.
Well, and you have to think about the yin and the yang symbol. You were talking about the yin and the yang earlier. There is darkness in the light and there is light in the darkness. And so just because you're resonating with the darkness doesn't mean you're not resonating with the light, because there is light in the darkness, just like there is darkness in the light. There's nothing wrong with you resonating with the darkness. If that's what feels good to you and that's what works for you, that's where you're supposed to be. There is no other way. You're having the experience you're supposed to have.
And I don't think that sexual energy is light or dark. I think it just is. Like, I feel that sexual energy is the most high and the most powerful, but that's not to say that the way that you resonate with it is wrong or bad or anything of that nature. It's just the way that you connect with it. And everyone connects differently. That's like whenever you were saying your analogy about we're all just tiny fingers reaching out from the same source. And then my analogy was this, we're all rays coming from the same sun. I think that it's good to have those different experiences and talk about them, because what I say people might resonate with, and then what you say people might resonate with, and that way there's a mix, and there's different things for people to connect with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we may be all speaking different languages, but we're all describing the same thing. As we awaken and we transcend and we embrace who we are, people are going to be uncomfortable with that and try and shut you down. And that might hurt them when you go away from the status quo. So there are certain harms we can't get away from, nor should we. But in the grand scheme of things, try not to hurt others if you can avoid it, as long as you're not hurting yourself in the process. Be who you are and accept who you are, even if it's not the status quo, as long as it's not, truly hurting somebody else. Like, I'm not going to excuse murder for, well, that's who I am. Like, there are certain things that's not going to flow.
This is who I am as a person, okay?
Yeah, like, that's not going to fly. But when it comes to embracing who you are, for example, me identifying with the darker side of life, that's okay. And I think that's really important for people to hear, because there's shame that's applied to that. There is oftentimes when it's not like you said, the Puritan way of life, there's a lot of shame that gets applied to it. So just peeling away that shame and saying, hey, you be you, because you are beautiful.
It's all about loving and accepting yourself, and loving and accepting others exactly where they are and exactly where you are.
Yeah. I'm trying. That's the hardest one, right? Turning that love back onto ourselves.
Me too. For some reason, it's the hardest one.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on to the episode. This has been a phenomenal episode. At least I get so excited talking about this.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I could talk about this all night.
Me too. We're incredibly lucky to, and I say that from like my hardest of hearts. I am so incredibly lucky to be able to come across people who challenge me so that I don't stay asleep throughout my life. I'm so fortunate. And every time I have these conversations, I'm just like, how lucky am I that the universe is like, hey, wake up, girl, talk to these people and have these conversations. Okay, I'm gonna cry. Let's go ahead, John. Bring us home.
Come on, Ashley. Just let it out. Let it go.
I will say this because I think it's important. One of my friends last night told me that we have to be strong our whole lives. And there's always moments where we're going to be challenged to be strong. So when you can find a moment to unravel and cry it out and let the universe know, I'm feeling this pain and I need your help. He's like, take those moments. It is absolutely okay to have those moments.
Definitely. All right, I'm bringing us home, correct? Correct.
Yay!
All right, thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of 3Haunted Podcast. I am your co-host, John Thomas.
I am Ashley, the Lunar Goddess.
And thank you again to our guests, Patricia and Callie. Absolutely wonderful to have you both on here. And if any of our listeners have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, we ask, if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, subscribe to our social media. You don't want to miss one crazy moment.
Until next time.